Cambodia signs a secret deal with China. It gives China's Navy exclusive rights to a naval base. That could help the Chinese military control a critical shipping lane in Southeast Asia. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. China has signed a secret deal for exclusive rights to use part of a Cambodian naval base called Ream. Cambodia is here. Ream is here. Now, if the Chinese Communist Party's military, the People's Liberation Army, was really building a navy base in Cambodia, that would be a big deal. But don't worry, because last November, Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Sen totally denied it. Of course, it would be super embarrassing if, say, foreign media found out about it. Wait, technically, it's not a Chinese military base. The pact simply gives China exclusive rights to part of a Cambodian naval base. Still embarrassing, though. That's why Cambodia's Prime Minister is doubling down and denying that report, calling it the worst fake news against Cambodia. Which is yet another lie, because the worst fake news against Cambodia is that the Prime Minister actually won the last election. It's so much easier to win after you've thrown out all of your opposition. Also, the naval base thing happens to be true, unlike free and fair elections in Cambodia. So what's the big deal about a Chinese Navy presence in Cambodia? Well, as I mentioned, that Navy base is here. It's on the Gulf of Thailand, and that means easy access to the Strait of Malacca. And that's the most important shipping lane between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. The Pentagon believes it's part of the Chinese regime's plan to boost its ability to project military power around the globe. And the U.S. is concerned that any steps by the Cambodian government to invite a foreign military presence in Cambodia would disturb regional peace and stability. Although I'm sure if that foreign military presence were the U.S. might reconsider its concerns. Not that the Chinese military being there is really equivalent, especially considering that the Chinese military is run by the Communist Party, which supported the previous Cambodian Khmer Rouge regime, even as it murdered 1/4 of Cambodia's population in the 1970s. Anyway, the base would be Beijing's first dedicated facility on the Southeast Asian mainland for naval staging. That is not naval staging. That is what happens when our graphics guy spends too much time on YouTube. Naval staging is where you put Navy units, aircraft, and warships someplace where they can be prepared for attacking or invading. A former U.S. State Department official says having a naval base in Cambodia gives the People's Liberation Army Navy a leg up in all of Southeast Asia, because you have, all of a sudden, mainland Southeast Asia potentially sitting behind a defensive Chinese military perimeter. And another U.S. official told the Wall Street Journal that a Chinese presence at Ream would greatly complicate the ability of the U.S. to help Taiwan if Beijing decides to attack. The Chinese Communist Party opened its first official military outpost overseas in the African nation of Djibouti just 2 years ago. That made Djibouti the linchpin in China's Belt and Road plan. The Belt and Road is the Chinese Communist Party's plan to build a sprawling network of land and sea links throughout Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and Africa. For trade. And as a way for the party to project power and influence across the world. The Chinese Navy's exclusive use of the naval base in Ream, Cambodia, is part of what the Pentagon sees as the Chinese regime's quest for a global network of military and dual-use sites. Djibouti was the blueprint for mixing commercial and military interests. And it just so happens that the Chinese Navy is also allegedly building a Navy base in Pakistan, although they deny it. Where have I heard that before? Chinese state-backed companies also lease deep water ports in Sri Lanka and Myanmar/Burma, but the Chinese regime also denies those will ever be naval bases. Well, as an Australian intelligence official said, we have some concern that China is using the same playbook in Cambodia they used in the South China Sea, creating facts on the ground until such time that it's too late for anyone to object. Like when the Chinese regime built those fake islands in the South China Sea, but then denied they would ever be used for the military. Then they surprised everyone with landing strips, missile batteries, and long-range nuclear bombers. I'm sure those are just civilian landing strips, civilian missile batteries, and civilian long-range nuclear bombers. And if you think the naval base in Ream is a problem, it might be only the beginning. The US and its allies are also lobbying Cambodia not to let China's military use a new airport being built just 40 miles away. An airport being built by a Chinese company on a 99-year lease. Don't worry though, the company denies it'll be used by China's military. But if the rest of the world believes that, after all the denials about the Cambodian naval base, then we're the ones who are really in denial. So, what do you think about the Chinese regime establishing its first military outpost in Southeast Asia? Leave your comments below. And before we go, I'll answer a question from one of our supporters on Patreon. Robert W. Eichen asks, has China become a fascist and imperialistic nation? What? That's crazy. If you accuse the Chinese Communist Party of being fascist and imperialistic, they'll totally deny it. Thanks for your question, Robert. And you too can be like Robert. Support China Uncensored as we make episodes like this. Visit patreon.com/China Uncensored and pledge $1 or more per episode. And you'll have a chance to get your question answered on the show. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.